All right. Hello. Good evening,
All right.
everyone.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Okay. Good evening and welcome to tonight's session. Um, I'm glad we are able to make it to tonight's session, and going to really have a good time together, learning further concerning what we have started. Okay. So last week we had a very good moment interacting with Excel, and I know it's been a very challenging experience. So we started off with data entry, and we also got to look at this messy data here, where we were able to sort out a lot of things. So before I continue, if you can hear me, please drop a comment that you can hear me. Please, can you hear me? I want to know if you are hearing me. Um, supposed to show. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's okay. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me. All right. So last we were able to look at a couple of things, and then it was a challenging week too because we had issues trying to stream and all of that. But I think a lot of those have been sorted out, and by God's grace, we'll be having a very smooth streaming going forward. Okay. So after we had looked at a lot of things last week, we also have our milestone to meet up with, which I'm sure we are really working on it. So this way, we are basically going to enter into advanced Excel. But before we are proceeding to looking at advanced Excel, um, we have our what should I call that? We have our last week's assignments and tasks that we are yet to fulfill. So for those who are yet to do that, please ensure that you take time to do all those things and submit it. And the good thing is, if you are done last week's work very well, this week will just be fun for you because this week we just have a couple of things to add to what we had learned last week. So the main work was already done last week. So if you did well last week by going through all the contents that was made available to us, and you did all the assignments that we also present for us to do, this week will just be fun because you will just have to work on those things. So um, we also have expectations that we have to meet, which was being sent to us. Let me try to pull out that file. It was Excel. Um, okay. So if you had If you look at what was expected of us, and there's a file I'm looking for. Okay, it's not here. And then you also have the labs. The labs was sent to the group. So it is expected that you should have finished with your labs too, and then before you enter into this week. But if you have not done so, we are set a deadline of 11:59 today. That is before 12, and so far some groups have submitted. I'm still looking forward to get response from other groups concerning the work that they are doing. There's a file I'm looking for. There's a file I'm looking for. Let me just let me pull it up so that we know exactly what we are to do this week. It's about our content for the 3 weeks. Please just give me a moment. It's important I pull up that file because it's going to show us what we are to cover. Oh, I've not even passed it. Oops. Okay, yeah, it is. Okay, so we did a lot of things, including the ones that we have on the screen here. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay. We did data entry. We used formula like the value here, which was used during the class. Thanks to Ted that reminded me of that. Okay. For week two, what we are going to focus mainly on in week two is mostly a business intelligence form of analysis, where we are going to use some critical formulas like XLOOKUP, VLOOKUP, you know, HLOOKUP, index and match, and all of these. Choose, X match. We'll do also do conditional aggregations like some ifs, and all of that. We are going to do time intelligence. We'll look at all of this, and then we'll also look at text functions. Some of these text functions, we had seen them last week, like left, right, mid, len, trim, combination, text, concat, and text join. So we'll also look at things like sorting and filtering of data, including the common ones, basic, custom, and advanced, sorting of at multiple levels, and all of that. We'll also do conditional formatting, and then we'll also look at data bars, icons, and all of that. Then work with pivot tables and other forms of field arrangements and filters. So it's important we always know. So we do data validation, depending on drop down. We look at restricting inputs and all of that. We also look at dashboard fundamentals. So the funny thing is, yes, one of the assignments you were to do last week was to build a simple dashboard, which was a way of stretching your limits. It was a way of stretching your limits. So yeah, and I'm glad with what I saw. Some of us did perfectly well in okay, okay. So okay, thank you. I've already seen the file. So it is important that we go through these things so that we know exactly what we are to cover for the week. So, all right, let me come back to um, our worksheet here. I don't know if I had sent this document to us too, because it would help us to practice along. Have I sent these documents to the group? Please confirm if you have these documents. Tell me you have it. If you don't, tell me you don't have it so that I'll know if after the class I just need to send it to us. All what I'm doing now is to set the tone so that please concerning those documents sent to our groups. I am to understand it. Dropped a message in my group. Still waiting for response. Okay. Please, I want to know which group is that. I think that should be group what? I don't know. So the group, if you're having a challenge as a group and you cannot sort it, you have to bring up that challenge. You would bring the challenge up to me, and then I would try to address the challenge. We'll try to address the challenge. So, okay, I think the name of it is um, Excel tutorial one. Excel tutorial one. That's the name of the file. I think it's in the data bank. If you check the data bank, it should be inside there. Okay, so one of the things that we have to look at this week. But okay, before I look at what we have to do for this week, I want you to post questions on challenges that you probably had during the week. Let's take 5 minutes to see if we can address a few challenges first. Okay. Okay, thank you, Tef, for acknowledging that you don't have this file. I'm going to send it to the group immediately after this class. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so please, is there any group or anybody that is having a challenge with any of the things that we have done this week? Let's start by addressing it first before we move into something new. Let's not compound the problem. Rather, we should look for a way to solve it one after the other before we move to the next one. Is there anyone who has a problem or a challenge in the group, a concept you don't understand, something you are not able to sort out as a group or as an individual, so that we can sort it out, take a few moments and sort it out before we proceed to look at other things. So 1 minute is gone. So we have 4 minutes to do that before we proceed to other things. Okay. All right. I'll be waiting to get questions, but if there is no question or anything, someone can just say, let me go ahead so that we can just go ahead. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. I've not gotten any question from us, but I'll still keep an eye on it, on any question that will come in. Okay, so today we are going to look at important concepts in data analytics. The first one would be us looking at conditional formatting. We will look at if statements. We'll look at some database functions, which will make us to use formulas like sum if, average if, and other database functions. We are going to look at how to create charts. We'll look at spark lines. We'll look at how to use from data, how to move and create our pivot tables. From there, we try to look at a little part of the assignment that you're supposed to do last week. Okay, the exercise did not cover all expectation listed in week 1. Yes, this is the one, but the the parts that the exercise covered are those parts that are most important, those ones that are most used. So it's not everything that you have to take a practice on, but you just probably practice on the best, like the most important ones. So other ones you can find a way around them. But if there is any function or any of the things that you think that you still need to do some work on, you can let me in on that information so that I can provide more insights. Okay. Okay. The first thing I'm going to look at tonight is how to carry out conditional formatting. So in conditional formatting, we are trying to check if a certain condition is being fulfilled. So by looking at those conditions, what we really achieve in the long run is we check if a particular cell satisfy a condition. So let's assume, for example, we want to rent a house. So this data set is about houses in different towns, the size of the room, the number of bedrooms in the house, and the number of bathroom in the house. And it also has the listing prices. Let me format the prices. Um, Let me format it in, say, Naira. Let me look for Naira. I'll open up and then go to please 1 minute. I'll go to more and then I go to the symbol and then I scroll down so that I can find Naira. So we can have Naira here, different Naira. We have a Fulani Hausa, Ibibio Igbo, Kanuri Yoruba. I'm an Ibibio man, so I will choose Ibibio Naira. Okay. This is supposed to be formatted that way. Okay. All right. So this is in Naira. This is supposed to be formatted for me now. What's going on? I want to. All right. So we have the prices here. We have the number of bedrooms and the bathrooms that are within the data. So we want to format it based on certain rules. So let's assume that we want a house that has 4 bedroom. So we can highlight the column by clicking on the column row to highlight it. And then we go to the Home tab and then we go to conditional formatting. So we can use this drop down here and say we have so many rules that we can format it with. So some of the rules here are we can say the bottom row, the highlight cell rule where I can highlight certain cells. We can use a scale, different scale, and even more rules can be made available if we click on this. Okay, so I'll go back to Home, go back to conditional formatting. So this conditional formatting, what it does is it helps you to set a condition. So first of all, I want a condition where the rooms are equal to, so it can be greater than, okay, let's say maybe I want a situation where the rooms are greater than 2. So when the rooms are greater than 2, I'll type in my 2. So when it's greater than 2, I have the opportunity to select the rule that I want to apply to it. Let's assume that I want it to be highlighted with green, or I can even put a border around it if I want to, or give it a red text or a light red feel, or yellow, anything. But I want to fill mine with okay. Let me fill it um with the green, so that it will highlight that I have what I need to. So I am looking for, let's say, between 3 to 4 bedroom. So I'll first of all say, okay, let it be 3 and above. So when it is greater than 2, so it means that it is a house that I can possibly take. Okay, now let's look at bathroom 2. So let's assume that in terms of bathroom, we have at least 1 to 4. So let's assume that this house I need but between maybe 2 to 3 bathrooms. So I can set a rule for that. I'll go to the home tab. From the home tab, I'll go to the conditional formatting. I will go to between. Between here would help me to uh, use a certain rule, which is between 2 and 3 in this case. So I'll say between. Okay, it automatically highlights 2 and 3 for me. So if I wanted 1 and 2, between 1 and 2, I can also select it. So let me still fill this with green so that they can align. So you can see that we are already beginning to see a pattern here. We are beginning to see a pattern where we see some of the houses do not align. So we just know that, okay, these ones that are not aligning, we cannot go for them. Now, let's assume, for instance, now we also have the price issue, where I want a situation where maybe what I have is let the amounts that I'm spending be less than 100,000, as the case may be from this data, because I can say I have 158, 155,000, and I have 84,000, 96,000, and so on. Okay, so in that case, I can still apply the formatting. So it depends on the case of what you are doing. This formatting will just help you to be able to highlight these rules. So I can say highlight rule, let it be um okay, maybe uh less than, we just use less than um sorry, I just made a mistake. Let me go back. So I want the cell to be less than or equals to we have greater than, less than okay, let me use the between rule. I can say between 98,000. Why am I always messing this thing up? Okay, I'll use okay, let me just say that the amount is less than 101,000. 101,000. So it is highlighted with red, which I don't like. So I want all of them to be highlighted with green for me. So I can come back here and say, I'll go to the less than rule and say less than 101,000. And then I can change it to green. so that they can align, so that we can start now to look at where can we find that kind of house. I think we found one here. Let's see this one. You can see that this one does not satisfy our condition for the bathroom, and other ones do not really meet up that rule. Yes, so you can use this to easily, okay, we have houses, okay, we have houses here too that seems to fulfill our rule. So you see that with this conditional formatting, which is something you just need to try and see the ones that would be best suited for you. And then another thing is, after you are finished, if you don't want it, you can also come to clear rules and clear rules. You can either decide to clear rules from this sheet that we are in, or you clear all the rules in the entire workbook where we have entire sheets. So I can decide to clear the rules. I'll select the whole worksheet, and then I go to conditional formatting, and then I'll clear the rules. So once I do that, all the rules are gone. Okay. So if I want to bring it back, I can just press Ctrl Z and they will come back. Okay, I hope you find the conditional formatting useful, because it helps us to format conditions for us. For example, you may, if you are having maybe amount of data, or maybe a price of a certain range, so you want a price of a certain range to be highlighted so that you see those who are defaulting or those who have met a particular threshold. You can just highlight it. You can use different colors to highlight the same cell to give you an insight into what you are doing. Okay, based on that, if you have any questions so far, just drop it in the comments. I will attend to it as we proceed. Okay, so this other aspect is where we are going to use um, the first conditional flow, which is the if statement. So in the if statement, we'll be looking at if a certain condition is fulfilled. So it's always very simple. It's always like, if this thing happens, oh yeah, do this, else do the other one. So that is what we are going to be looking at. So for first, we have to understand the business context here, and we are also going to apply absolute referencing. Look at the references that we did last week, both relative and absolute referencing. So first of all, let's try to understand this data. Let me zoom in a bit. So this is data about certain sales rep, about 5 of them, and for the month they have been able to make sales, each of them making a certain amount of sales. So this is, in this column we have their total sales, which I'm sure by now we know how to calculate the total sales, which we'll use the sum formula to calculate it. So like you can see from here, the sum formula has been used to calculate their from here has been used to calculate their sales for the duration. Okay, so the manager now gave the target here. So anyone that is able to hit this target, we are going to say that, okay, this person has been able to meet the goal for the month. But if the person does not miss the target, we are going to say that, okay, the target was not met. So normally, as we all know, our formulas always begin with the equal sign. So we type in our equal sign, and then we bring in our formula. So the first formula we are going to look at is the if. So if, once you type a formula, it's going to highlight itself out like this. So once it highlights, it's for you to press tab on your keyboard so that it can it can get into the formula. So once the formula is entered this way, you see this IntelliSense are going to come up. So the first IntelliSense is asking us to write up the test. So for our test, we are going to say if this total is greater than or equals to the target. So we should say that goal is met. Else, that is, if it is not equals to this target, we should say that goal is not met. So instead of you looking through this data one after the other to write out the ones that the goal has been met and the one that the goal has not been met, you can just use a formula to calculate it. Now, you would really appreciate this. You will really appreciate this when you have maybe 100 to 200 records or 1,000 or 1 million records to fill out. So imagine the amount of time you would have taken to go and look at them one after the other. Okay, let's do it. So now we'll say if, we'll say the condition here, this amount here, which is this cell. So we select the cell reference. So if this amount is greater than or equal to this amount here, so that is our condition. If this amount is greater than or equal to that amount, then we'll put a comma in order to tell it what to do. Okay. So we put a comma to it and say what should it say if this happens. So we use quotation mark to say goal met. You wrap it. Now whenever you are typing a text in your analysis, when you are typing a text in a formula, you always wrap it in double quotation mark so that Excel will know that what you are entering is a text. If not, it will treat it as a number and it will bring out an error. So after typing the text, we can say put another comma, and then we will now have to specify the condition if the value is false. So if this value is false, what should it say? It should say goal not met. So we wrap it up and then we close the bracket. Now let's go through what we have said. We are saying if this formula, this column here, this F7, which contains this total here, is bigger than, that is greater than or smaller, sorry, is greater than or equal to the target here. No, this is supposed to be B4. Let me change that reference. Supposed to be B4. You see it's highlighted. So the references that you have typed in, they are going to be highlighted. You use that to make sure that you are in the right reference. So it is equals to what is in this cell. Then we should print goal met. So if it is not met, we should print goal not met. So once we do that, we'll press enter. You see, for the first one, if we check here, we have 36,000 and this is 34,000. Okay, but let's try to copy down this formula because uh, one good way to carry out analysis in a way that is very rewarding is that your formula should be reproducible. That is, you should be able to copy it into some many rows in order to automate your work. So let me use this method of placing my cursor at this bottom right angle where we have this small square, so that it changes to this plus. Then I'm going to double click it. uh, Double clicking is supposed to copy it down, so let me just click and drag to fill out to other ones. So now this is where the work of a data analyst comes in. Let's see what has happened, whether it is correct. So this one is 31,475, but it's telling us that the goal is met. And then we also have 33,000, goal not met. 40,000, goal met. 33,000, goal met. 37,000, goal met. So what really happened? Because um anything short of 34,000, like this one, is supposed to tell us goal not met, and this one is supposed to tell us that goal is not met. So let's see. From here, goal met for 31,000. Is saying that if f this is now f8, right, is greater than or equals to b5. Now if you check, b5 is an empty space here, this empty space here. So the formula, what it did is that it kept going down, because normally this was supposed to be an absolute reference and not a relative reference. Now remember that your absolute referencing will always have the dollar sign inside of it, while the relative referencing will be without the dollar sign, just like we have here. So for example, if you look at this, F7 and B4, they are relative referencing. That is, they can move down to the columns below them. So what we are going to do to fix this problem is we'll have to change the B4 here, which represents this cell, the B4 here, which represents this cell, to an absolute reference by like pinning it in a way that it cannot go down. So what we do in that case is we press F4 on our laptop. So once you press F4 on your keyboard, it's going to fix that reference. So let's go again. That is go met for that. Let's copy down the results of what we just did. Okay, let's check if it is now working. Goal met for 40,000. 33,000 is saying goal not met, and then 31,000 is saying goal not met. 33,827 is saying goal not met. Okay, that seems like everything is working now. Everything is working now. So that is why, as a data analyst, one of your major work is not to rush and do the work, or to look for the best formulas to solve a problem. Most of your work will be you're verifying to check whether what you are doing is actually correct. Because if you are doing the wrong thing and then you are doing it fast and you are doing it multiple times, does not mean that it is correct. So it is what I've really learned as a data analyst is that most times you just have to slow down. Don't rush to meet up with deadlines and all of that. Slow down and make sure that what you are doing is actually correct, because in the correctness of your work lies your integrity as a data analyst. There lies your the trust of those who are putting their decisions in your hand. So most times, just slow down, ask yourself questions. What this thing I'm doing, is it correct? Have I verified multiple times to make sure that they are correct? Okay, so That is the if function. So what does it evaluate? Is it just evaluates if condition, do this thing, if the other condition, do the next thing. So that's what it does basically. Okay. So if you have any question on this function, on the use of the if functions, you can drop me a question, can drop questions so that we can attend to it while we move to the next part of what we have to do for today. Okay, so yeah, we have a data made available to us, and in the data we also have certain questions and management wants to look at. Now, in this case, we decided to, okay, since management would actually be asking us several questions at a time, so what if we can write a formula that is reproducible such that if a condition is needed, we can we can look at it from different perspective. For example, let's use this first one to analyze very well. Let me zoom in a bit. Okay, now let's look at from this particular one. So we have to look at the total expenses using lookup value. But the lookup value in this case is not just going to be maybe the X lookup or V lookup. We are not going to go into that for now. Okay, so this lookup here is we are going to use automation functions to say, okay, for example, if we are given, once we put a category here, we can know the total expenses for that. Now, where is that coming from? If you look at from here, we have different categories within this data, like technical support, telephone, copying overhead, software, maintenance, supplies, and expenses. What we're going to do is we're going to create some of this based on the category, based on the. All right, so let's start with to now. Just like we have some that we use to total, we have some if, we have count if, we have average if, and other formulas like that that helps us to carry out for calculations. So this, since this is talking about total and it's tied to is if state. So today expenses, some expenses if a condition is okay. So start with a formula. We can say equals to some. Now you will see that here. Use my down arrow key to come down to it. You will see some if. That is, have some if and we have some ifs. Some here is used you want to evaluate on a single condition. That is when you use your sum if. And just like you may have thought correctly, when the conditions are more than one, you are going to use some ifs. Okay, so we are going to use some Okay. Sorry. Let me I think we lost signal. Please just give me 1 minute. Let me get back in. Okay. So we are going to use this sum if here. So first of all, we are asked the range from which we are going to do our sum. So for us, the range is in the category. So we are going to select the range. So after we select the first value, we are going to select the whole range. So we just press on our keyboard Control, Shift, and the down arrow key. Uh, please 1 minute. My okay. Let me so what I said is I press Control Shift and then I use the down arrow key to highlight the whole range that I want to select instead of dragging it down. So let's assume that I had millions of rows. I can't just be dragging it down like that. So first of all, I have selected the range from which I want to sum if the condition is completed. So I'll put a comma to it, and then it's asking me for a criteria. So for me, the criteria is if what is in within this range is software, which is recorded here. So instead of just typing maybe software in a quote, I put it in a cell of its own. So if that range, what is in that range is what is in this column. So what should you do? It's asking me for the sum range. So it should come here and sum this range. So to highlight it, I'll press Ctrl Shift and down arrow key to sum it up. Okay, so once we have done that, let's see what is in our formula, and then I can close it up with another bracket and press enter. So let's take a moment and look at what we had in that formula again, so that we can better understand it. So we are saying that for the sum if, we always use the equal sign to start our formula. So first of all, you are going to give it the range which contains those data that would give you the condition. So with that, you now provide a criteria which should be a criteria that is contained in this range, and then you have to give it the range which contains the data that you are about to sum. So after you do that, you press your enter and then you sum it. Now the good news is after doing this now, if we, for example, management now asks us, we want to know what we spent on copying. So you just come here and replace the software with copying. So take note of the value here. This is 17,215. So once we just come here and we type in copying, for example, copying, and press enter. So it will give us a sum of everything that we have spent on copying. If we come back and maybe we put in telephone, we put in telephone. So once we type in our telephone, immediately the value is going to be updated for us. So that is the beauty of this. Now, one other thing that you can do in a cool way, which we'll learn later this week, is for you to maybe create a drop down menu here, so that instead of even typing it, you can just from the drop down menu you choose what you want, and then the value will display automatically. We'll get to look at drop down menus on Friday, when we'll be having our second session for the week. So that is how to carry out your analysis in this case using the sum if. Okay, so we also have here that we are asked to look up the average expenses by category. So remember that we also have the same category here. So we want to, in this cell, we want to look up the average expenses. You know, the average is different from the total. The total is a sum of everything, while the average is more like a midpoint that you can, okay, this is an average amount, or uh, in economics terms, the mean amount of whatever was spent. Okay, so in that case now, we will come in. Since we have average and we also have a condition to fulfill, that means that the formula we are going to use is going to be the average if. So I can type my average. Once I start typing average, you will see we have average area, we have average ifs. So since it is just one condition that we are to fulfill just one condition. Sorry, I think let me zoom out a bit. I've zoomed in too much. Okay, so I'm going to bring in the average if, since it is one condition that we are to fulfill. So I'll tap it in, and then it's asking me for the same question it asked me in this case. So what is the data range? So I'll come to the data range that contains my category, and then I'll press Control Shift and down arrow key to select that range. After that, I can put a comma. So after selecting the range, I put a comma to move up to the next criteria. So the next criteria, the next one is a criteria. What are we looking out for? We are looking out for what is in this cell. Remember, what was there is rent. Let me go back. Let me do something so that we can see everything at once. Just 1 minute. I want to extend this. Okay, so this was equals to average if. That was equals to average if. This is the formula. Tab. We gave it a condition. Control Shift down arrow key to select everything. After selecting everything, we fulfill that condition. We put a comma to it. Okay, it's asking us for the criteria. So the criteria is whatever is in this cell, whether it is rent or whatever. So we have put in the rent, and then we put comma. So where is our sum range? I mean the average range, the range that we can get our average from. So press Control Shift down arrow key to select everything. And yeah, so the next thing would have been to close our bracket. But I just want you to know that whether you close the bracket or not, in this case, Excel is going to close it for you. But always close it as a best practice, in case maybe someone wants to learn from your formula or whatever. But you should always make it best practice. And in case you go and learn from, you get to use maybe an Excel version that does not support that, so that you will not have issues. So once we press enter, the price, the average expenses comes in immediately. So for example, now if we change this to supplies, immediately it's going to update and give us the average. If we change it to let's say overhead, it's going to update immediately, and it is not case sensitive. As long as the text is inside here, it's going to help us to update automatically. It's going to help us to update automatically. Okay, so that was when we were evaluating for one condition. So what if we are asked to evaluate multiple conditions? What if we are asked to evaluate multiple conditions? Okay, so in terms of multiple conditions, once a condition is more than one, it goes to 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 conditions that needs to be met. What you consider is ifs. That is the plural form of if. Now, before now, the formula that was used to solve this kind of problems were called nested if, where you have another if statement inside another if statement, and the formula can grow so big and tedious. Thank God for improvements and the new formulas that have been brought in to make the data analysis work easy for us. So in this case, we have to Okay, sorry for the network challenge we just experienced. We're about to sort that out. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's continue. Sorry for the network challenge. So we'll start from where we stopped. So in this case here, since we are evaluating two conditions and we are looking for the sum, so we use sum ifs. So the third one here. So we say sum ifs. So this one is first of all asking us for the sum range. Now, it is always important that you read the IntelliSense to know what you are working on first. So this one is asking us for the sum range, which is this. So we'll press Control Shift and down arrow. to select it, put a comma, and then go back. Then we go back up to see what we have done. So we have selected the sum range. So once you put a comma, it moves to the next one. So it's asking us for criteria, the range for criteria 1. So the range for criteria 1 is the division, which is found here. So I'm going to highlight it again. I'll press Ctrl Shift down arrow key to select the second condition, and then I put a comma so that it moves to the third intelligence, which is criteria 2. You can put as many criteria as possible. You can see the ellipses at the end there, which shows that you can add as many criteria as possible. So our second criteria is the category. So we quickly select that with Control Shift and down arrow key to select everything. So we close up our brackets. So we can see what we have done here. First of all, we use the sum ifs formula, and then it asks for our sum range. It is important that you always follow the IntelliSense because it guides you on what you should always put in your formula. So that will show you what you have to put in your formula. So in this case, we are to put in the sum range before we start putting our criteria. So once I hit enter, it's showing me it's showing me an error that there is nothing there. Okay, let's go back again. So we have first our sum range, which is this one shown in blue, and then we have our okay, we did not put the criteria first. Please, let's take a step back. So this formula is a little bit tricky. So you have to put the criteria range, and then you put the criteria first. So our criteria range 1 is where we have the region. So when we select the region, so I'll press Ctrl Shift and down arrow key for that one first, and then after that I will have to select where that criteria is found. So that criteria is found in this cell here. I put a comma again, and then I'll go to criteria 2 according to the criteria range 2 according to the IntelliSense. Yeah. Okay. I'll go to criteria 2, which has to do with this one. So I'll press Ctrl Shift and down arrow key in order to achieve that. So after that, I put a comma, and then I'll make it know where that condition is found. So like this one is the sum range. This is where the range of the first criteria is. This is the cell that will contain the criteria, and then this is the there's still something wrong with this formula. I doubt if it will work. No, it won't. We're supposed to put a range here, a range for this category, which I doubt it was rightly copied. Okay, let me select that range now. Okay, I made a mistake. I only selected a cell in it. I was supposed to select the whole range using Ctrl Shift and down arrow key to achieve that. Okay, so let's see if we get it right this time around. This is our sum range, which is the first one here. This second one here has to do with the range of the first criteria, and then this is the cell which we have the first criteria. This is the range of the second criteria, and this is the cell that contains the second criteria. Okay, what is supposed to be the problem? Okay. So a second way that we can do this, if you have challenge in a formula like this, is to go to formula, and then within the formula you have functions, and the function I'm looking for is sum if. Let's see. Okay, that's the sum ifs. Let's see what's supposed to be there. So we have the sum range first. The sum range. Let me keep this down here. So for my sum range, it is here. So I'll select it, Control Shift and down arrow key to select the sum range. And then I have criteria 1, the range for criteria 1. Let me use it from here. Okay, Control Shift and down arrow key. And then what is my criteria 1? Criteria 1 is contained in this particular cell here. Criteria 1 is east because it has to do with the division. So I'll now go to range criteria 2, which is the category. So I'll do Control Shift down arrow key. And then where do I find that condition? Which cell is going to contain that condition? The cell is is this software here. So let me try that. Okay, so that way works. So another way you can always get your formulas is if you come to formulas here on your tab, the formula tab, you can get any function that you want. All the functions are there. So you can just, if you know the function that you want to use, you can easily get it from there and start your analysis. Okay. So those are some automation functions that we have used. So we can proceed if you don't have any questions. So let's take 1 minute and I'll get questions from us. So in 1 minute, let me get any question that you need to ask based on what we have done so far, so that if there is anything we need to reiterate, we can look at them together again. So do you have any question? Drop it in the comments for me. Okay, so in the absence of any question, let us move forward to look at charts. Okay, so no matter how good your analysis is, you must be able to display it in a way that people can easily visualize it and understand it. And that brings us to chart. So chart is just a visual representation of your data. When you convert your data points into visuals, it's often said that a picture is worth more than 1,000 words. So when you are able to present so that is so that is it's and we have this and or fix, we are going to people fix in business. So first what we can just chat it where we do so that to sell it down and also she also okay, we are back. Um, let me see. Okay, please sorry for that break due to network. No matter what, we are going to finish what we have to do for today. Network or no network, we are going to make sure we complete everything that's okay. So I have a question here which says, assuming there is no reference for criteria 1 and 2, is it okay to type the product name? Yes, yes, and wrap it in a quote. Yes, you can do that too. You can do that too. Yes, you can wrap it. So if there is no range, if it is just maybe one product that is involved, or maybe you have the energy to be changing the formula every time, so you can just wrap it in a quote. Thank you very much. That's a very intelligent question. You can wrap it in a quote. Okay, so I was about showing us how we can create charts before we had the network glitch. So to create a chart, you can just highlight anywhere in the data, or you can highlight the whole range of your data. That is the best practice in case you have other data points within your worksheet. So you progress to insert. From the insert, you go to recommended charts. So from the recommended charts, you will see different charts that will be recommended for you, and then you can just choose one of the charts. So that way you have your charts come up, which you can adjust it. You can adjust the charts, and if you don't want anything, you can remove it. You can change the title by just typing the title name. You can rename it. All these. Okay, so you can easily clean up your data. Let's assume that I don't want to see this data bar here. I can just highlight it, click on it, highlight it, press delete on my keyboard, and it is gone. And I can clean up my data by clicking on this brush here. I can look at different formats of my chart. So I can select like maybe this one. I'll have to take this out again. And then I'll come to this plus sign here. I can decide what stays and what goes. For example, if I don't want these legends that are under here, I can just say legend bye bye, and it is gone. I can even these grid lines that are in the middle, I can decide to remove them. I can decide to include a data table or data labels like this, but this is very dirty. I can decide to include a trend line. a trend line for a week, maybe I'll say maybe week two. A trend line will show the relationship between week two and every other weeks. So you can decide the chart title, that how you want that title to be, whether you want the title to be at the center or to can even get more options on how to format your data. Okay, I think this formatting is not that good. I'll just have to go back a few steps. Just have to go back a few steps. So that's how to create your chart in one way. So the second way is to use a shortcut. So just click anywhere within your data, and then on your keyboard you press alternate F1. Alternate F1. So this shortcut will automatically bring up the best chart for your data. Now, when we talk about charts, we know that every chart has a particular thing that it is used for. We'll get to learn about that later in this training, that you cannot use one chart to do everything, because every chart has what it is specific for. Okay, so that is how you can create your charts. I'm sure most of us who have probably created that dashboard has been able to create your charts. So that's how to create charts. Okay, so another thing is we also have to look at how we can use trend lines. So trend lines are used mainly when you want to do a quick analysis. So let's assume that we have this data here for from May to October, and we just want to see a trend of how the data is moving. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? So we can just use what is called the trend line to see how um, the sales is moving for each of the salesperson, and also know the ones that are making profits and the ones that are making loss over months. So what we'll do is that we go to insert tool. So under the insert, we have this line here, which is called the spark line. So you can use your spark line here to carry out a simple analysis. So first of all, what you do is you select the data range. So it is from here up to this point that you have it. So you can just come here. Let's just try the spark line, and then we include a spark line. So it's asking us for the range. So I'm going to highlight my range, which is from here to here. That is from B2 to G2, and then I click that. So you see, a spark line is now automatically created for us, which shows what happened for each of the months. And we can just easily copy this down by, why is my double clicking not working today? Okay, I'll just, what if I had a million rows? So I'll just have to drag it down. I have to drag it down to see what's happening in other data. Okay, so the spark line will just appear for all of the records immediately. By double clicking, it's supposed to copy down for me, but I really do not know why it's not working. If you bring your arrow down here and it turns to plus and you double click, it's supposed to fill everything down the column. Okay, so within the spark line, if you don't want it this way, you can use columns to also show this data. So what did I do? I just went to the same place I saw the spark line from insert. I went to the column here, and then I can highlight all the rows. Once I press enter, columns will come up, and then you will see that this one is more representative. You can just see what each of the column means in this case. So you can see, for example, if you are rating the this guy here, Alberto Cati, you see that sales was good in May, very bad in June, in June, a little better in July, very bad in August, and then sales was very good in September and October. Okay, so you can also use that. Another thing is you can also use win loss. Let's assume that there were negative values in this data set. I'll just use this first row for example. So let's assume that this value here, instead of being this, it was a loss of 8,200 and 8,237 dollars here. So let's use the win loss and see what is going to happen. So the win loss, what it does is going to show us where there was profit and loss. So let's put it in. Oops. Data range is from here to here. Control Z. Let me select. Let me do it again. I didn't select where it should go correctly. So this is where I want to see that data. Okay. So I'll go to Insert, and then I go to the win loss. And then I'll select the range. Okay, once I select the range and press OK, so you see that in this case now the loss is automatically detected. So you can just easily know where profit was made or where loss was made. So it makes understanding what we are doing very easy by just giving us a quick insight into our data. It gives us a quick insight into what we are doing to better understand what is happening within our data. So yeah, these are things that you can get to practice in order to help you in your analysis. Okay, so wrapping up tonight, let's look at a few other things which has to do with how to create a pivot table. How to create a pivot table. One of your tasks, the task that you were to work with last week was to reproduce a dashboard. So in order to reproduce that dashboard, one of the requirements was that you first of all create the pivot tables. Okay, so how do you create a pivot table? Now, whenever you want to analyze data, the first thing you should do is what? So please, someone should drop a message on that for me. If you want to analyze data, let's assume that we have this data set, or probably it is already a clean data set, and you want to analyze it. What's the first thing you should do? So let me get a comment from the comment section. What is the first thing that you should do when you have a data like this and you want to analyze it? Okay, please let's do that quickly so that I'm sure that we are following along. You have this data here available. Okay, thank you very much, Cynthia. You create a table. So that is correct. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a table. So how do I create a table? I'll use a shortcut Control T. So with that Control T, is going to help it to ask me if my data contains a range. Does my data contain a range? Yes, it does. So once I say OK, it's going to convert this to a table. Okay, now for me to create a pivot table, I know normally I should go to the Insert tab, but let's learn something. If I press the alternate key on my keyboard, you will notice that everything on the tabs, all the tabs are being highlighted. All the tabs are being highlighted, starting from F for file, H for home, N for new, P for page layout, and all of it. So I do know that if I want to insert a pivot table, I would have to go to N. So I'll press N on my keyboard. So once I press N on my keyboard, you see all the shortcuts are being made available. So for example, what I want is pivot tables. So I'll press V, and then it will ask me, do you want to create this pivot table from a table range or from external data? And T is for table range. So once I press T again, it's going to highlight the table. And then the next thing is going to ask me the location I want to put the pivot table. So I can just say, okay, I want to put it in a new sheet, or I want to put it in an existing sheet. So by existing sheet here, it means that I must provide the sheet. That is, if I've already created a sheet that I want to put a pivot table, I can start looking for the sheet. What's the name of that sheet? Okay, I think let me just put it in a new sheet so that it will not mess up our workflow. I don't want to add it to data model. You'll see what that means later. So with that, I can say, okay, I want to create a pivot table. So once we do that, a new sheet will be created for us. So if you can't see the sheet, you can tap on this ellipsis to show you more. So it is called, the pivot table sheet is called just sheet. The name is just sheet. Okay, why is it running up and down? I want to rename it. Let me rename it pivot. Okay, so once the pivot table comes up, you will just look at this other side where we have the pivot fields. But these pivot fields will not come up unless you tap on anywhere on this pivot table where they are showing you pivot table. So if, for example, you tap outside, it's going to disappear. The pivot fields is going to appear, and then you tap back, is going to come up. So for example, now you can start building okay, I think first of all, I don't like the way this pivot fields looks like. I want to format it better. I can come to this setting tools here and say, okay, I want it to be, this is the way it's looking at like right now. Okay, I want it to look like this. 4 of them side by side. No, I don't like that. It doesn't look good. Okay, I think this one is even better. It's even better. Okay, let me leave it as it is. Okay, so for example, I want to know the total quantity. Maybe I'm working on the KPIs. So I'll just click on quantity. It will know that quantity is numbers. So it would take it to the values here, and my results will appear here. So even with that, I can decide if I right click on it, I'll have an option to know how I want to summarize it, whether I want to do the sum or I want to do the count. Now, let's be realistic here. If I want to, for example, know the total quantity, that means I am counting. Am I counting? Okay, yes, it's a sum. I want to sum all the quantity. Okay, so that has been done neatly. But if, for example, I wanted to know the customers, I would probably use count distinct. Okay, so you see, the total quantity that we have here is 3,770 something. So what if I want to create another pivot table? Does it mean that I'll have to go back to the other side and bring it up again? So what I always advise is that when you're creating pivot tables like this, what you have to do that once you create it, just copy it, or you just to reproduce this, you can just put your highlight a cell and then you put equal to, and then you bring in this cell, press enter, then you can drag it down to, you can drag this down to get its value. That did not work. Okay. This is equal to, I'll select this range. Okay, yeah. I think what's supposed to happen is, if for instance I say this is equal to this cell, it's supposed to give me the value that is in that cell. And if I drag it down to this one, it should also give me the value. But why it is spreading over is because this data is actually in this first cell. So if I double click here, it shows me that it covers everything. Now you are going to sorry, we are back. We had a little network glitch, but we are back. We'll be fine. Okay. Yeah. So we're looking at this. So if I drag it down, I'm going to get the value. So it's always advisable when you produce anything on a pivot table, you should copy out to a plain cell so that you can better understand. So if I want to create another pivot table now, what I just have to do is I have to copy this pivot table with Control C, and then I paste it here. So let's assume that, for example, what I want to do is sales by category. So I'll look for, do we have sales? We have revenue. Okay. We have revenue. Let me just use revenue. And then I don't want the quantity. I want to spread it uh, by the region. So you see, immediately I have the revenue by the region. So what did I do? I just have to click on the revenue and then I click on the region. So it will give me the revenue by the region. So it is important, like I said, for your KPIs, you always copy it out. You copy it out. So let's assume also I want another pivot table. I can copy from this one. I can copy from this one. I'll Control C it. Maybe I'll bring it down here. So for this one, why it's showing dash ash is because the space is too small. So I'll just broaden it. So this one, what I want is just the revenue. So the total revenue would be entered for me. So since it is a KPI that I would want to use, I'll just copy it and then paste it somewhere else. Or another way to do that is just to say equal to this cell. You press enter. Then you can just drag this down to give you the sum of the revenue. Okay, now I would easily show you a little thing that you need to know in case you were challenge while you were trying to bring in the. Okay, so your dashboard now is actually you copying charts that you have created through your pivot table, because the pivot table helps you to, like we can see, summarize your data neatly. It helps you to be able to summarize your data in this neat form. I'm sure you probably have watched a few videos to see how it is done. So my own is just to let you know those pitfalls you should avoid. Like for your KPIs, you should copy them out. So what this is going to do to you is, let's assume that you built a chart with this. Remember the key alternate F1 will build this chart for you. So when you have built this chart with alternate F1, the next thing you can do is you can come and select these data points here, and then you go to your home tab to sort it. So you can sort it in either ascending or descending order. So for me, I want to send it in from largest to small, which is descending. So it sorts the data and it looks nice here. So I can clean up these charts just like we had done before. And then I can decide to maybe remove my grid lines. I can decide to add data labels. This still looks neat. And then I can call this, give this a descriptive name according to what it can be. Maybe sales revenue by region. So it's always important to give your chart a descriptive name so that someone can easily know what you are doing with that chart without asking you question by region. Okay, so I can now create a new page that will carry my dashboard. For example, if I do this and then I'll come here, can copy this chart here, or I just cut it with Control X, Control X, we cut, and then I paste it here. And then maybe for my dashboard after the design, I want to bring in a KPI. So I can just say equal to from here, and then I come to my pivot table area and press enter. So that value can be entered in the next sheet. And that's how you build an interactive dashboard. Okay, now another thing you should also know is in the course of building your dashboard, you are going to add slicers to it. So how do you get a slicer? You just go to insert. From the insert, you go to slicer. So you can create a slicer. Let's assume that we want to sort this data by maybe by the sitting. So we can just get a slicer that shows the different cities that as we are clicking on the slicer, it is going to be affecting everything that we have in our data. But as you can see, it is only filtering one data, which is this revenue by region. So what you can do now is you can connect your slicer. You go to, you click on slicer here. So from slicer, you say report connection, and then you take time to connect it to all the reports so that they can be interactive. So you keep an eye on every other thing. I'm going to clear this filter from here. So you check, for example, let's start from the quantity here. If I press Chicago, the quantity is going to change, and so is the revenue too. So that's how to make your dashboard interactive. So by this weekend, when we have our next class, we'll take time to deepen on this. So if you are having a challenge with your dashboard, I think now you already have some insight into what was broken in your dashboard. I don't want to I don't want to in a way end up doing your assignments for you. That's why I'm very careful with the way I treat all these things as regarding the dashboard aspects. But be rest assured, by the end of week 3, which is next week, we are going to build two portfolio interactive dashboards with a full business problem and everything. So I'll encourage us to, if you have not completed and submitted that assignment, that last project on that dashboard, I encourage you that you do it, even though you miss the deadline. Don't stop doing it. Don't let, because you have missed the deadline, you say, okay, I'll not submit again. What, yeah, the deadline will only do to you is you may just miss a few scores. And in this training, I don't want us to keep scores at the front. What you learn is more important than the scores that you are going to get per time. Okay, that has been a long night, and we have really taken time to look at a lot of things. So, yeah, at this point, I want to get feedback from us. Let me get a few questions from us so that we can address it, and then we can call it a night so that Martins, okay, your head on the hot. Don't worry, we have ice block here. We are going to pour it on your head. Don't take it too seriously. You learn it one step at a time. Don't worry, it's a process. Just trust the process. It's going to work out just fine. Don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel overcrowded. Just take it one step at a time. Okay. All right. So let me get comments and questions from us so that we can call it a night. Okay. Question, 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 question. All right. Do we have any question? Please let me get your questions. Okay. In the absence of any question, we are going to call it a night. Please, if you have any question or anything that you want to let me know about, don't always hesitate to reach out. Always reach out so that we can best know the challenges that you have, and we can also help you, to guide you and to help you understand better as we continue. All right, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in tonight. Your time is really appreciated. Sorry for network. I know MTN is the best network in Nigeria, but I feel recently that they are not really doing well for us. Okay, so thank you for tuning in and thank you for your time. Let's keep practicing. Let's keep practicing. I'm going to send this data set to you, and then you can use it to reproduce or replicate what I've just done tonight as a way to help you refresh your memory. All right, thank you very much. And from here, I'm saying good night.